is someone you all have probably heard speak throughout Columbus. His name is Bob Fitrakis. He's attorney at law and publisher of the Columbus Free Press. Give him a warm welcome, Bob Fitrakis.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here today, and I think this is a very important historical struggle. I mean, we all know on a basic level what's happening, and that is we've taken legal fictions, corporations, and given them the rights over flesh and blood human beings to take our water, to take our air, and exchange it for toxic sludge and radioactive water. What they're doing is usurping centuries of rights, including common law rights, to the quiet enjoyment of our homes and our community. And what they'll say is, the law is on our side. Normal people, flesh and blood human beings, should not be standing up and asserting their Bill of Rights as individuals who care about the earth, who care about their air, who care about their water. They'll say, you can't do this. We are fiction. And we have your politicians, many of them, in our pocket. But what we're going to say, it's time for the debate. It's time for relocalization. It's time for people, flesh and blood people in Columbus, to stand up and reclaim their biosphere, to reclaim their environment, to reclaim their neighborhoods, to reclaim their water, and say that we don't have to exchange our clean water for you radioactive, toxic sludge. We're up to this debate. We're ready for this debate. We will assert our rights under the Home Rule Charter. We will let them know that we don't want to be the dumping ground, the cesspool of it all. And they'll tell us there's jobs, but there are no long-term sustainable jobs when it comes to this type of pollution. It won't trickle down. It's trickle on. What they are doing is polluting our environment in ways that will never, ever be cleaned up. And what we are doing is what we've done before. Remember, they tried to sell us the mobile Chernobyl. George Voinovich, the governor of this state, tried to say, let's be the toxic radioactive waste dump for all of the Midwest. County after county passed resolutions saying we don't want radioactive waste dumped in Ohio. They backed down. They tried to destroy Pickerington Pond. The people stood up and said, we want the last wildlife refugee left alone. It's there today because you fought to instill that future generations would have a diverse ecosystem. They had the largest source point, trash burning power plant, a killer on the south side. It had killed 10% of the workforce in 10 years. And they said there's nothing that can be done about it. Nothing. It has to exist. We shut it down. That's what we did. And we will prevail on this. Through Home Rule, we'll put this issue on the ballot. We will debate this issue, and we will prevail. We will have clean water. We will have clean air. We will have a sustainable economy. And we will, in fact, preserve this environment for future generations, and historians will record what you did here today in relocalizing the economy of Columbus and standing up for all human rights.
Thank you, Bob Fitrakis. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Our next speaker, we're really honored to have. He came all the way from Pittsburgh, and this is Douglas Shields. He's the former president and president of the Pittsburgh City Council. He's also the sponsor of the Pittsburgh Community Bill of Rights legislation that banned fracking in Pittsburgh.
I'm sorry.
Let's give him a hand. Recognize him from the movie Gasland.
Greetings from frack-free Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm very, very pleased to be with all of you today. And I'm pleased to see that people still believe in their rights, exercising them as citizens. As I sat here and listened to the speakers, talked to some of you beforehand, and I'm sitting in this chair and I see this juxtaposition, Columbus and the American flag. Columbus represented the expansion into the North American continent and brought with it colonialism. That brought with it the yoke of tyranny. That brought with it a desire for something better. And a little bit of space in time, as it is that space between the statue and the flag, came a country like no other country in the world had ever seen, that produced a document called the United States Constitution that endowed us all by the rights of nature, by our Creator, with an inalienable right to self-government. It cannot be legislated away. It cannot be regulated away. It cannot be taken from us. That which is in our own very being. That statue represents what we're confronted with today. In Pittsburgh, we had a rough time. In 2003, the city was damn near bankrupt. And that was my first year on council, lucky me. But several years before, in 2003, it was announced in the papers there were 93 trillion cubic feet of natural gas lying beneath the feet of Pittsburgh and all of Pennsylvania. And we thought nothing of it. We thought nothing of it at the local level. Good. Jobs, energy. This is good. And we used to have a lot of gas here back in 1900, 1890. This is a good thing. In fact, I once said to a friend, the only way we're going to avoid bankruptcy is if we hit oil at the point where the Allegheny and the Monongahela at the confluence of the Ohio. Little did I know. But then in 2009, I got a couple of phone calls from citizens wherein someone knocked on their door in the neighborhood. I'll give you $1,200, sign this lease. It's a standard lease. And they started to lease inside the city of Pittsburgh. We got no notice of the activity. We had nothing from our state government to go by. They opened the floodgates in 2006. They had the Halliburton loophole that exempted them from treating their waste streams, as does the United States Steel, as does Alcoa, as does Joe's Bar and Grill. Only they were exempt. We all live by those rules. You don't have to. And we started to hear about a place called Dimmick. Nobody would ever heard of Dimmick for what befell it. A bad well casing that an oil and gas drilling concern denied vociferously that they had anything to do with the ruination of the water of Dimmick. Wasn't us. Wasn't us. Never heard of one well that was ever contaminated. Well, 6 years ago, my state Department of Environmental Protection came out and reported 243 wells officially contaminated due to the process associated with extraction of natural gas by means of hydraulic fracturing. That's just the water. That's just the tip of the iceberg, because my DEP doesn't do a darn thing. And well, we have evidence of that. There isn't a day that doesn't go by that we read about some harm to us, to our fellow citizens, to our community. And so we were confronted with this mess. The first place you go is to the zoning code. It's land use, right? That's what these folks do here at City Hall. But when you looked at what you had to do, we realized that zoning was not going to be the answer. And besides that, the public doesn't even understand zoning law anyway. And when I came upon the CELDF folks and read their ordinance, the light bulb went off and I said, this is it. You move the issue from zoning, some obscure stuff in the law, to rights. It's about our rights. It's about us. It's about our citizenship. It is about our inherent, inalienable right to determine the character of our communities, not the colonialists from Exxon, BP, Chesapeake, the biggest pack of liars you ever saw. And they can sue me for libel, but they know they can't win if it's true. It is true. What Aubrey McClendon did, he should be in jail for. President of Chesapeake. The lies and the deceit that was foisted upon us. But you can't blame a thief for being a thief. But you can point a finger to those that sit in these halls of power and hold them accountable to you. You are the government, not this building, not the people in it. You are the government. And if you're not happy about the government, then go home and look in the mirror and start changing things. Because that's what we did in Pittsburgh. And when we enacted that bill, the first one of its kind, if not in the world, at least the United States, we set off an earthquake. And I knew that it would be important. I had no idea the scope and the breadth that this would take on. And the reactions and the phone calls to my office from around the world, news agencies, everybody wanted to know what was this really about. And it was about us and how we live our lives. That's what it was about. And asserting the authority granted to me by you, we the people, and acting in your best interest. When I took an oath of office, as do the people that work here, I uphold the Constitution and to look to the health, the welfare, and the safety of those I represented. That's my primary duty. And in all the years, in 20 years in government, I never saw an issue like this where the public's health and the safety and the welfare was taken off the top of the list and put somewhere down, way down. And what became prime was profit, was money, and power. That's not America. That's not the country we grew up and learned to love. That's not what that flag represents. It's about us. And then when we passed it around our neighborhood, neighboring communities, Homestead, West Homestead, Forest Hills, Wilkinsburg, all boroughs around Pittsburgh, Baldwin Borough, all enacted this ordinance because they recognized the threat. They recognized their obligations, and they said, no, thank you. We don't want it. And that's power enough. You can't lead with greed. And you cannot govern from fear. How many elected officials have you heard? Well, if we do this, we might get sued. In the meantime, you're asking our sons and daughters to fight in Iran and Afghanistan and God knows where else to support that flag. You'll send people to their death, but you're afraid to go to court to stand up for my neighborhood? Who do you fear? Who do you fear? Exxon? Range Resources? Chesapeake? Are you afraid of them? Let's go to court. Let's seek justice. Do you remember your governor with the secret memo where they colluded with the industry to take your Ohio Department of Environmental Protection, ODNR, and to conspire against you, against protests, against local organizers. Do you forget? Somebody in there did. Somebody didn't go to jail for that. Nobody was charged and nobody knew who wrote the memo. And it got blasted around the world through our network of friends. Whether they be in Pittsburgh or the Karoo in South Africa or Australia, New Zealand, Romania, France, Vermont, Nova Scotia. All these communities, all these nations have taken a good hard look at the proposition of what this stuff brings with it, and they said, no thanks, we're changing the channel, we're moving to sustainable energy, we're embracing solar, we're using the wind, we're finding another way. And find it we will, and find it we have. We can always be against something, but you have to also be for something. Tell your state representatives, tell your local officials, we want you to stand for us. We want you to stand for a sustainable future. One that looks to these beautiful places in our parks, our rivers, our homes, as a legacy to leave someone, not as something to be grabbed up by the greed. Tell them that. Make them understand. Make them understand at the ballot box. Make them come to Pittsburgh, and we'll be happy to take them on a tour to the sacrifice zones of Washington County and Greene County. We'll take you to the people's homes where they can't breathe without air filters in the homes. We'll take you to the people that have lost cattle, that have lost crops due to the pollution from this industry. And this is not a Democratic, Republican, right-wing, left-wing issue. This is an issue that I have never seen like it before, where in Pennsylvania, when we challenged Act 13 that gave them license to run roughshod, it was the Republican township supervisors they challenged in the Supreme Court. I've got Tea Party friends that see this the same way as I do. We have found common ground. We all have found common ground. The young, the old, the rural, the urban, the suburban, all have embraced this issue. And those that do never let it go. I have never seen so much determination displayed by a citizenry over one single issue as this. These people want to divide us, and yet in doing so they unite us. And so like Pittsburgh, like Las Vegas County, New Mexico, like Broadview Heights, Longmont, Colorado, Los Angeles, yes, even Dallas, Texas said no. When they saw what happened there down the road in Fort Worth, they said no. Dallas, Texas. Somebody explain to me, I'd love to have a debate with the elected officials here. How is it that nations, states, cities, towns, and counties came to the same conclusion that it is unsafe, that the industry has lied, and not to be trusted? The evidence is aplenty. Now is the time for you to gather your voices together and speak up. And now is the time to embrace the community rights ordinance that is before you. This is about your rights. This is your time. And it's our time to act together. I hope I see all of you in New York on the 21st September. Anybody going? And you'll see how big this community is. Thank you very much. You have my undying thanks and support in your efforts to make for a better sustainable world and a better city of Columbus, Ohio. Thank you very much.